Hi, everybody, and welcome to Observing with Webb for April of 2017. We've got all 5 naked eye planets. They're visible at some point in April. The temperatures are getting warmer, and the Lyrid Meteor Shower might just put on a display for you. So I'd like to welcome you to Observing with Webb, where the armchair astronomer figures out what they're looking at, why it's so cool, and what they should check out next. Don't forget to check out my Podbean page, mrwebb.podbean.com, also my YouTube channel that you're looking at now, and my Twitter feed, which is Mr. Webb PV, no punctuations. So anyway, I'm going to talk about the planets, the events, and the constellations for the month of April. So let's start off with planets, okay? So let's say you're looking out around sunset, okay? That's a good time for a lot of people to look. And let's see, right around sunset. Sunset in the beginning of the month is right around 7:30. And what you can see here is you've got Mars and Mercury pretty visible off in the west here. Now, Mercury is only going to be visible for about the first week of April, at least visible in the west at sunset for the first week of April, but it's less than 15 degrees above the horizon. Mars, on the other hand, is a nice ruddy red object, which is south of Taurus up here, or at least under Taurus, for a little while. And yeah, so check out what happens to Mars and Mercury as the month goes on. In fact, let me go to like 8 o'clock, so it's just a little bit darker. What you'll notice is that throughout the month, I'm going to fast forward to day by day, you'll see that Mercury dives pretty deep and Mars gets closer and closer to Taurus. Let me get a little darker here. And by the end of the month, Mars is actually going to be just to the right of Taurus. It's going to move throughout the month. And that's pretty much what you can see at sunset. So not easy, but you know, Mars is still a good planet to look at. Okay? And in particular, on the 28th, you'll see the moon close to Mars, but I'll get into more detail about that later. So now let's talk about the planets that you can see in the morning. So let's go to sunrise and look to the east. So opposite, we've got the east here. So if you look at the east, let's go about half an hour before sunrise. You'll see Venus is just barely visible above the horizon, but it'll be brighter than anything else around it. So it's easy to tell what Venus is, or which thing is Venus. But what you'll notice is that as the day or as the month goes by, Venus gets higher and higher in the morning. We go back a little bit earlier since sunrise gets later and later each morning. Okay. You'll see Venus pop up there. It's there. Oh, wait, coming in. You might just be able to catch Mercury by the end of the month. Depending on how good you are, you might be able to catch it just a little bit. But Venus is going to be nice and easy to see, super bright. In fact, it's almost 20 degrees above the horizon by the end of April. And if you have binoculars or a telescope, what you can do is you can take a look and check out Venus at the beginning of the month. Okay, let me get it up there. And at the beginning of the month, it'll be a very, very thin crescent. And as the month goes by, you'll notice it gets to be a bit more of a thicker crescent and a bit smaller. It's actually pretty easy to see in just a spotting scope or a set of binoculars that you can hold nice and steady. Oh, I forgot to mention that Jupiter and Saturn are also out, but you kind of have to go throughout the night for those two. So let's go to April 15th, and let's look at sunset. Oh, that's May 15th. Bring that back. Okay. And you'll notice that around April 15th, Jupiter is already up when the sun sets, but it's up in the east-southeast. And so what's going to happen throughout the night is Jupiter is going to move across the sky, and around 1 a.m. it's going to be directly in the south. And then in the morning, it's going to be over there in the west, setting as the sun is rising in the east. It's a beautiful time to check it out because it's out pretty much the whole night. Opposition is on the 7th. That's when you can see it from sunset to sunrise. But go ahead and take a look. The only thing that you might get confused about is it's pretty close to Spica. Just note that Jupiter is pretty much to the right of Spica throughout the entire month. So it's a little bit to the right and usually a little bit higher than Spica. So you can check that out as well. Oh, and Saturn. Doesn't come out until about 1 a.m. Okay, 1 a.m. in the southeast, it's going to rise up, and it's going to be above Sagittarius. So if you can find that nice teapot shape, you can find Saturn pretty easily by just going up and to the right. And yeah, or if you get up early in the mornings, you can actually just look south, and it's going to be that very bright object off in the south. Okay. Yeah, so those are the planets that you can see for the month of April. So don't forget Mercury and Mars in the sunset. Throughout the night, you can see Jupiter. Saturn is more off in the morning in the south. And in the morning, you can see Venus and possibly Mercury at the end of the month. Okay? There you go, Venus and Mercury. So let's move on to some of the events. And what we'll do is we'll follow the moon. So let's go back to April 3rd. And let's go to sunset. And the sunset's about 7:30 on April 3rd. It's getting later and later. And what you'll notice is a nice first quarter moon on April 3rd. You'll notice that the right half of the moon is lit up. Oh, let me get that back. Right half of the moon is lit up. It's visible until about midnight or 1 a.m. And yeah, just following the moon phases here. So if we keep following the moon phases, let's get it to a little dark time there. What you'll find is as the days go by, the moon will cross through Cancer. It'll cross past Leo. And actually, it looks like it gets pretty close to Regulus. 7th, it's under Leo, and then it moves through Virgo. And then on the 10th, April 10th, you have a nice little close encounter between the moon and Jupiter. In fact, they are only about 2-3 degrees away, which is a nice time because if you get confused between Jupiter and Spica, it's the closer one to the moon on the night of April 10th. So that's a good time to check that out. Then on the 11th, we have the full moon. That's when the moon is rising right as the sun is setting. And it's up for the entire night. Not the best time to look through your telescope because it's just really bright and you don't really see the crater. You don't see the shadows of the craters. So I don't like seeing it on a full moon, but some people do. And that's fine. Then let's see. Talked about, let's go a little bit darker into the night. And what you'll see is Saturn starts rising. Remember I said about 1 a.m. it starts rising. And the moon's up here. But what's going to happen is, day after day, the moon is now, after being full, going to get a little bit lower in the night sky. And it'll get closer to Saturn. In fact, on the 16th and the 17th, the moon and Saturn are going to be right near each other. Now, the Milky Way in this picture is a bit exaggerated. You're not going to see that. But I just wanted to show you that on the night of the 16th, the moon and Saturn will only be about 6 degrees apart. And then on the 17th, the moon and Saturn are going to be about 6 or 7 degrees, 6.5 degrees apart. So they're going to be pretty darn close together. And if we back up and see what happens throughout the night, you notice that Saturn and the moon travel together across the sky. And if you look in the south in the morning, you should be able to find the moon, and Saturn will be nearby. So don't forget, on the 16th, on the 16th, the moon will be above and to the right of Saturn, and then on the 17th, the moon will be to the left of Saturn. So check that out. And if you've been looking at the moon, you'll see it gets thinner and thinner until the 19th, when you have the last quarter moon. That's when it's visible starting at midnight and going into the morning. I find it's really neat to see the moon in broad daylight, which you can until about 10 a.m. or something like that. And then on April 22nd, I actually don't really have much to show you up here, except that's going to be the Lyrid Meteor Shower. So the Lyrid meteor shower is not the strongest shower. There's only about 10 or 20 meteors per hour. And but the moon's going to be a nice thin crescent, so that's not going to interfere all that much. Now, your local light pollution, the street lights and such, that's going to affect you much more than the moon this time around. But in general, what you want to do is look up in the sky past 11 p.m. Okay, so you can check out Jupiter while you're out there. You can look at some of the constellations. And what you want to do is generally look north. Okay, if you look north, maybe north and up, you want to keep a wide eye, look at the entire sky, but in general, look north, maybe a little bit northeast, because that's where the radiant is going to come. The Lyrid meteor showers come from, or appear to come from, the constellation of Lyra. So you don't want to look right at Lyra, because all the meteors are going to appear to come out and away from Lyra, so you want to keep a nice wide eye. Make sure you check to see if the skies are going to be clear. Find a dark location away from local light pollution, and if you can travel, go find a place that doesn't have many lights around it just in general, like away from the cities. Also, lie down in a reclining chair or something that insulates you from the ground, like a pool floaty. If you're feeling extra nerdy, you can have a meteor count. Sky and Telescope has some links. International Meteor Organization has some links. Or you can contact your local club and see what they know about that. But yeah, go out and see if you can see some meteors. In fact, you can even take your camera out and set it up and have it take pictures all through the night and see if you catch one. So see what you can do. I hope it'll be very nice for you. And then let me look east in the morning on the 23rd of April. On the morning of the 23rd of April, you notice that Venus and the moon are pretty close together. They're low on the horizon. Let's see, what is the altitude of this here? We've got it at about 8 degrees above the horizon. So it is going to be pretty low, but Venus will be super bright. That'll be easy to see even in the dawn. And also the moon's over here. It'll be a thin crescent, but still easy to see. You might even be able to catch the earth shine, or if you look at it here, you can see there's sort of a reflective, even though that this part of the moon is dark, there's still some light that's hitting the earth, bouncing off the earth, hitting the moon, and then bouncing back to our eyes. And you can actually see that at this time. So check out Venus and the moon on the 23rd. So if you've noticed, the moon is getting thinner and thinner and closer to the sun. And oh, there we go. April 26th is the new moon. Can't really see the moon at all because it's right near the sun. And then we switch over to looking for the moon in the western sunset. And let's see what happens on this other side here. April 26th, 27th, and 28th. Here we go. One last little bit here. On the 27th, the moon is well below Mars and the Pleiades as well. But red, ruddy Mars is up there. And on the 28th, the moon is now above or to the left of Mars with Taurus the bull in between. So if you're looking for Mars, the 27th and 28th are really good nights to look for it. Just be careful because Aldebaran is kind of red and it kind of gets mistaken for Mars sometimes. So just be careful. Mars is the one to the right of Aldebaran. And that pretty much does it for the events for April. I want to just take one last quick look at the winter constellations. And I'm going to go to April 15th. Okay. What you'll notice is that you get one last shot to check out these winter constellations here. Okay. Remember, you've got Orion, and that's going to be still in the sky, but it's diving pretty fast. Find Orion by looking for the 3 stars in a row that make up the belt, and then follow them to the right, okay, until you find this bright red star Aldebaran, which is in Taurus the bull, the V constellation. Okay. right there. And if you go a little bit further, you'll see the Pleiades here, a nice cluster of 5, 6, 7 naked eye stars, plus tens, hundreds of more if you have a telescope. And then if you go back the other way from Orion's belt, okay, you can find, there you go, Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, which is the brightest star in Canis Major, or the big dog. What else you can do from here is you can see some other winter constellations. You've got Canis Minor up here, Gemini is up here, and Auriga is over here. Pretty good looking group you got there. So then if you wanted to move from the winter constellations, you can move much higher in the sky. You'll see Cancer, which is sort of the Mercedes-Benz sign in the sky. And then right near the middle, you'll see the Beehive cluster, a really cool cluster of stars. It is one of the best open clusters of stars that you can see in the night sky. Move over a little bit from there, and you'll see Leo the Lion, the backwards question mark with the right triangle attached, and also Virgo over here with Jupiter inside of it. It might help if you actually look at the Big Dipper, which, if you look at my Instagram account, I have a pretty cool picture of the Big Dipper and Ursa Major from Georgia. But if you follow the, if you follow the arc of the handle of the Big Dipper, follow that arc to Arcturus, the brightest star in Bootes, and then you speed on to Spica over here, the brightest star in Virgo. Just don't mix it up for Jupiter. But anyway, I think that pretty much wraps it up for April. I hope you get to see some Lyrids. But either way, get out for some constellations, and I'd like to wish you very clear, dark skies for the month of April.